there, friend. Welcome back to Linen Bouquet. I'm Jasmine, and we are continuing on with our Spot of Tea Saucer Sew Along. It has been going wonderfully. I am just amazed by all the love and excitement that I've received for this sew along. I'm wearing the same thing from last week, and that is because I am a mom and I'm trying to get all the things done as most efficiently as possible. So today's video, I'm sure you already read the title. We are focused on creating the saucer. So far we have made this, the embroidery of the tea bags. We have assembled our tea bags. All right, so they should look like this already. And now we are going to make the saucers. Okay, this is the base of the coaster. And we are only going to focus on creating this, not completely assembling it. Or you know what? I don't think we need 2 videos. I think we can just assemble it and add the tea bag all in one video. It's not going to take very long. You are going to see how wonderful and quickly this pattern comes together, which is why I think so many people are connecting with this pattern and loving the sew along, because it is not complicated. It does not require a ton of fabric or time. So I'm really happy that you guys are enjoying those aspects. I have my template. Go ahead and get your template out. This is the base. This is the saucer of the pattern. And I have my pieces, which is the mane here. I've got this pretty tilde print. And I've got the backing, which is just white. I don't use my pretty prints on the back. And then I've got my batting. Okay, these have already been sandwiched together, traced and cut out. So I am just going to sandwich them again. You are going to have your, I am kind of specific about the layering of this, because the way you layer your batting and your 2 fabrics will affect the thickness and how this is laid. So I personally like the batting to show more on top than on bottom. So that is why I layer them so particularly. I have my batting on top, my fabric, main fabric, wrong side facing the batting, in the middle. Okay, I need to pair these up with the correct edges. And then I have my backing on the bottom, and that is right side facing with the fabric. Okay, so you can see that that's batting, fabric, and backing. All right, so I really like to pin everything. I don't enjoy the pinning process. It is such a pain, but you cannot get your projects as neat and looking as crisp without the pinning. Unfortunately, it's just one of those steps that we have to do. So here I have my magnetic pin bowl, which I always use, and I love the glass head pins. I try to get the ones that are they're so thin. I try to get the ones that are as thin as possible. They are actually so weak and thin that they just bend with my fabric sometimes, and I prefer that, which, I mean, a lot of people would say, oh, that's no good. That is what I prefer. So I get my pin, and I'm gonna go ahead and pin all the way around on each of these little lumps, mounds. I don't know what you would call that. Rounds, corners. I don't know. I just make up words, if you haven't noticed. If you're like, wow, Jasmine used the wrong word in that video, that's because I kind of make up words as I go along. I currently still have a 5-year-old in the house, and I am teaching her how to read. And we still use the words like potty and milky and sleepy and all the baby words still, even though she's 5. Even though she's 5, I still do that. So sometimes I get on camera and I just blink because I'm like, oh, how do I talk to adults? Okay. So that's all pinned all the way around, and I am going to sew onto the batting. I do have a walking foot on my machine. I left that on because I don't like to change it out too much, and I feel like I stripped the screws of the sewing machine foot, so I try not to do it very often. But I am going to pick a point, and I don't need to mark it. I will just remember. So I'm going to pick this point here in between these 2 blue pins, and that is my gap that I will leave open. Okay, so I'm going to sew from this all the way around these curvy curvy edges to this point here, and I'm going to back stitch there so that it's tied off, and then I will flip it inside out. The angle's a little different, but I hope you can still see. I do use a 1/4 inch seam allowance around my saucer. I believe that is shown in the template. You can see the dashed line. That is your where you should be sewing your seam, and then the outside edge is the seam allowance that you should have left over. Okay, so I hope that was clear for some people that were wondering. And I left a gap here for turning. All right, and in case you're wondering, I am using the Bouquet TL 2010Q machine. I ordered this a couple years ago from Joann Fabrics, and it came with the table attachment, it came with the walking foot and all the extra accessories. So that was a very happy purchase. I've been very pleased with my sewing machine. It handles multiple layers and quilting very well, and it's not the most expensive machine on the lot, so I'm very happy with it. Now you can see here that I went around the curves. Take your time with those if you need to. It takes some getting used to whenever sewing around those curves. Now I do not always clip the curves. I do not put little clippings around the curves because I don't think I need it with this pattern. The edges are not very sharp. The corners are not, they're not very jagged. So I am going to go ahead and turn this inside out without clipping the edges. Is that rule breaking? I don't know. I think it's gonna be fine. I actually like a little bit of bulk on the corner or on the edges because it makes it fluffier, and I like that look. And the hardest part for me is always turning these pieces because of my chubby fingers. It's genetic, I swear. Okay, so here we go. And just like with the tea bags, I do like to wet the edges of all of my projects before I iron them down. I just feel like I'm able to really get a better grip on them. So I have my turning tool that I used before. It is just this little black thing. I don't even know what this is called. I found it in my daughter's craft box, and I did go ahead and add something similar to my Amazon storefront list that I thought would be very handy and similar to this tool, because I have no idea where else I could find it. I think it was part of like a drawing craft kit. All right, and I am just going to push these edges out right here, go softly along the curves. Okay. I just have it here on my tabletop. Sorry, the screen's a little too high. Okay, so I pushed those out pretty well. I'm going to wet the edges to get a even better grip around them. I like to kind of roll it in between my fingers and push all those edges out. I get a really crisp edge and nothing gets sewn under. Nothing gets caught or sewn underneath. All right. And with this open edge here, I'm going to wet that and fold it in. Okay, it should have a 1/4 inch. You want to fold it in about a 1/4 inch, and then you can machine sew it. I personally like to hand sew this closed so that I can't see, the seam. Okay, so it's a little puffy, but whenever you sew it down, it will take shape. All right, we've got a better view here. so this edge is unsewn, that is still open. I folded it in. I'm going to give this a nice press. Those edges are still pretty wet from the water spray bottle, so I'm gonna give that a press, put everything in place so it can hold a little better while I sew. I do like to hand sew these edges closed so that you can't see the seam. It's a little more hidden and discreet. So I have a needle and thread here. It's just plain white all-purpose thread. Okay, so that is closed all the way. Could be neater, but not too bad. And I'm gonna tie this off, and then I'm gonna bury the knot under there. Okay. Very nice. I'm gonna press that down, set the stitch so it all tightens up. Okay. Quilt along the edges here. It's gonna hold all the pieces together and give me that nice puffy edge that I just always talk about, because I think it makes this project even cuter with that edge there. It's only a 1/4 inch away from the edge. All right. Now, before I quilt, I will add some pins. I will add one in the center here, okay, so that my fabric is not shifting around as I quilt, and I will even add some around the edges, not too many. I do have my walking foot on the machine, so it shouldn't shift to the fabric as much, but depending on your machine, you gotta know how the fabric and the multiple layers will feed through your machine to know if you need to pin it down or not. We definitely don't want shifting and puckering at this point. I feel like this step especially really brings the whole piece together. And that is kind of tucked in, so I'm gonna pull it out with my needle a little. All right. So here we have the center template. This is for the center white circle, okay? And I already cut out my pieces. So here we have the white fabric that will go on top. Then we have the webbing here with the paper on the back. And here we have a stabilizer, okay? And it is adhesive on one side. So yes, we do need all three. I have been asked, why do we use all three of these? It is because, one, it is a raw edge applique. Okay, so we want to make sure that none of these edges are going to fray. That is why we have the webbing there to keep it in place so nothing comes off later on. And then the stabilizer underneath, that is to add an extra layer of white. If you feel like you don't want that, definitely don't use it. But you can just see here without the stable underneath, or the stabilizer underneath, you can see the print of the fabric, which just doesn't give the same effect. Okay, with that extra layer of stabilizer, it is more opaque and just looks a little more realistic, or closer to that tea saucer design. Okay, so yes, I have received many questions about that, and I'm not trying to confuse anyone, so I wanted to be sure to do that. So I am going to, on the wrong side of my white fabric, I am going to iron on this webbing here, okay? You want to make sure that's really on good. Get it as hot as possible to melt that webbing, and it's super hot. Okay, I'm like afraid to touch it. All right, and then I even do another little run on top. All right, you can see that. Now we can take off the paper on the back. Okay, there's a little edge there, can pull apart. Some people have expressed concern about the applique, the raw edge applique. If you do not like raw edge applique, I totally get it. Some projects I do not like to have a raw edge applique on. An example, quilts. I have made a couple quilts with a raw edge applique, and I really like the style, the country style of those specific quilts, but I understand that that is not everyone's preference. Now this is the stabilizer. Okay, we are going to, this top of the stabilizer is not adhesive, the bottom is. We are going to add the sticky side of my fabric that has the Wonder Under. We're going to add the sticky side onto the right side, which is the non-sticky side of the stabilizer. Okay, we're going to do it like that. And no, you cannot iron it together because you will get the stickiness on your iron. So I'm going to just layer it here on top of my saucer. You want to make sure it's centered. There is a guide in the template just to center it, but you also just have to kind of look at it, get a good eye feel. Also, if you have a small ruler, this is my favorite, most used ruler. It is the Omni Grip. It is 5.5 inch square. I will use it to measure. Okay, so I have about an inch there, about an inch there. Okay, that is nice and centered. All right, and I'm gonna iron this down. It's gonna take some extra heat and steam to get that really sticking down. Now, like I was saying, if you are concerned about the raw edge applique, if you don't like the look, or if it is just concerning to you, you do not have to raw edge applique. What you can do is get 2 pieces of white fabric, and you can sew them together and then turn them inside out to create that center white saucer look. I personally do not mind the raw edge applique. I like how it looks here, and I am not concerned about washing it and it fraying. I have used these for many months now. I throw them around the house, the kids play with them, and I use them for my drinks in my work area, and I am not the most careful with them. So so far I have had no fraying. You can see this one right here. I use this one constantly. There is no fraying. It still looks just as good as the first day I created it. So I am not concerned about this, but I also do not plan to wash them. Okay, so do what you feel most comfortable with. I like the raw edge applique. That is why I made the pattern that way. If you don't, you know, you can do what you'd like. All right, so now what we're going to do, we are going to sew right along the edge of this white center. Okay, but that's gonna do is that's gonna add quilting to piece everything together to hold it in place, since there are multiple layers and cushion, the cushioned batting inside. Okay, so I am sewing right along the white edge. That's like 1/8 of an inch edge there. Okay, and then we're gonna go inside about 1/4 inch and add another circle. I like that because it looks like a true tea saucer to me. There are usually ridges inside of the tea saucer to hold the teacup, and that is why I added that to the design. It also makes it a little more cushiony, and you can see there's more fluff because that is sewn down. So it adds interest also. Okay. Okay, you can see that double layer stitching there. It looks really good, front and back, so give that a press. Let it kind of settle into the fabric with that heat, setting the stitch and helping everything to get in place. I even like to add some water here because I feel like it allows the fabric to shift the way it needs to settle in. Looks really good, very neat and clean. Okay, so that is the saucer. Doesn't it look great? It looks very feminine with those nice soft curves around the edges. All right, and so then we get our tea bag. Now I'm sure you have many of these that you've already made. This is such an easy part of the project. So what you're going to do is you want to find, what I usually look for is an edge that I'm not particularly fond of. Just by looking at this, I can say this one right here, it kind of has like some little ripples. So I'm gonna hide that. I'm gonna hide the edge that I do not like. Okay, so I'm gonna put my tea bag here and then let my tea tag sit up here. And you wanna be sure that you're adding your tea bag on the outside rim and not in the inside of the whites, because whenever we set our coffee or our tea on, and I have a cup of coffee right here, whenever we set that on here, it is going to go right on that center white. You don't want your cup tipping over because of the tea bag is in the way. Okay, so once you find your placement, go ahead and pin that down if needed. Okay, so I will pin it down. And you can choose how you like your string to sit. I like to have a little curve. I think it adds some interest. Some people like it straight. Some people don't even add, I've noticed this, some people don't even add the T tag. They just kind of tucked it under, which works great too. You choose what you like the most. And I'm also kind of covering that little edge that I don't like right there. Okay, so I'm kind of strategic about how I place my T tags and the bag. All right, so I am pinning this down here so that I have it just in the right spot, and there's a nice curve there. Really cute, right? Okay, and so what we're gonna do is we're gonna sew down the T tag on all four sides, and then the tea bag, I'm just going to sew it down right where this white stitch is. Okay, in the previous video I had showed that I sewed this down, and I didn't recommend doing that in the pattern, but because I'm making so many all at once, in an assembly line, I did go ahead and sew that down. And so I'm not sure if you did, but that works just great to sew right on top of that, and it'll hold it in place. If you plan to wash your saucers, if you plan to gift them and you recommend for your recipients to wash them, I would say sew it down on all sides. Okay, I would not want to put this in the wash and then have the tea bag flapping around. I just think it would be more secure if you sewed it down on all sides. Okay, now I'm going to sew that down. Okay, you can see my machine handles it so well. There are so many layers here, right here where the twine is, and it just glides right through. And I did use an 1/8 of an inch stitch along the edge. That might even be even smaller than an 1/8 of an inch, and it's holding it down perfectly. So then you can trim down your threads, excuse me. Okay, you can trim these down, clean up the whole project, and that's it. It's done. That's how quick and simple this pattern is. I really like patterns that are simple. You can add the fussy cuts, you can add the personalization to them, but whenever they're simple, I feel like they're more appealing and interesting because of the simplicity. As long as it's a really cute design, it's still gonna look good. So you can see that there's a balance here on this saucer. You can see here it's empty and here there's interest, and it adds a balance to the saucer, so it's still very appealing, and it doesn't look off-centered or like it's too heavy on one side. Well, wasn't that easy? Can you believe they're already done? Such a very cute project with not a lot of work, and it just has a striking, adorable little effect. I love this saucer, and I'm so glad that all of you do too. I just am so amazed still by how quickly they come together. So that is the finished saucer with the tea bag, and this one is the applique tea bag, which is not included in the pattern, but just an extra design idea for you guys to enjoy. And I can't wait to see your finished saucers. I hope you will be posting them on Instagram. I will be picking the week 2 winner over on Instagram. For those who are posting, make sure to use the hashtag #SpotOfTeaSaucer so that I can see them. Those are your entries, and I will be adding you to the entries list. And then I will pick the winner and announce them on Monday, October 24th. And just a reminder, the winner will receive a $50 gift card to Got Quilts online shop, which is run by Richla, who has a wonderful and vast selection of patterns, quilt kits, fabric, especially fabrics like this, Tilda, and she's just amazing. And I think I did get this fabric from her shop, so it's super cute, right? And then the week 2 winner will also receive, along with the $50 gift card, custom stitching press from my shop, and I will be contacting the winner so that they can pick their very own upholstery fabric for the stitching press, so it can match your style and your sewing space. So I'm really excited to see all that you guys create this week, and I look forward to seeing it and seeing the conversations and the encouragement and talking back and forth with all of you guys. That really has been my favorite part of this sew along, is just connecting with all of you and having these discussions about a fun and cute craft that we all enjoy. So thank you all so much for joining me. Get your sewing done this week. This is the last video that I will be posting on the sew along, but I just want to send you all a big thank you and a hug, and I just appreciate you guys. So I hope that you will join me for my next design and sew along. I don't know what that will be. I'm trying to see what I can think up for all of you, and I hope that you'll join me along for the journey. And so like, subscribe, make sure you're following so that you don't miss the next sew along and project. And I will be sharing more and more on Instagram as we go along this journey together. All right, I'll see you next time, friends. Bye-bye.